Hi, I'm Tiam. I chose Language Myth 1220, which is Everyone Has an Accent Except Me by John Inslee. It starts on page 169. The explanation of the myth is basically that everyone has an accent except me or the people where you come from. So, for instance, I'm in Columbus, and it's like me saying, oh, everyone else in the United States has an accent except for people in Columbus. Or, we don't have accents. We talk regularly. Everybody else, they're the ones with the accents. So that's basically kind of the explanation for the myth, or, what the myth is and what it's about. The reason why that's actually a myth is because everyone has an accent. It doesn't matter where you are. I'll use the United States in this video as an example. It doesn't matter where you are in the United States, everyone has an accent because there's no barrier of what's normal, I guess. Like, there's no one who, oh, we speak regularly, everyone else has an accent. No, everyone has an accent because it's relative to where you are. So if you're on the West Coast, or let's say California, for example, to them, they speak regularly. Their accent or whatever, their way of speaking is normal. It's relative to them. If you are on the East Coast, for example, to them, that's regular. They hear Midwest or they hear Southern, and that's an accent. We don't have an accent. What are you talking about? So it's relative to where you are specifically. Also, it says that it's relative to experience, which I think is very interesting. It goes along with the where you are located, what area you're located, and also what's around you, because you may not necessarily be in a southern state, but if what's in your backyard, so to speak, is southern, then you can also pick that up. One example, at least from like Ohio, would be Cincinnati. I know a lot of people from Cincinnati, and because it's so close to Kentucky, they pick up that southern accent just because it's relative to them. It's the state right next door. A lot of people may live right across the river from someone in Kentucky, or it's right there. So for a lot of Cincinnati people, they have that accent as well. Um, some of the evidence that was presented in the book was that it's all about human perception. So it's how you perceive the language, um, which is how you kind of determine whether or not there's an accent or not, whether or not they have one. It's about how you perceive it. And also, something that I thought was interesting was accent is the difference in vowels, consonants, or annotation patterns that a speaker uses, which is on page 171. That's very true because different areas with their accents, they speak different ways. So they may use different tones. Um, they're they may emphasize certain parts of certain words, which gives it a different effect than maybe, let's say, we would with how we speak. So that plays a part in the accent as well. It's about how long some words are longer, some words are shorter, some tones are different, the way they say the words. That plays a big part in the accent as well. So I think that's part of the uh, evidence presented, as well as some accents don't sound extreme to us. And the reason why is because we're used to it. This is what we hear every day, and it's also how we speak. So it's very familiar to us. A New York accent sounds very different to us than someone else is speaking from Columbus, because how they use their words and how they put their sentences together is very different, and how their voice tones and like how they say their R's or things like that is very, very different. So it sounds very extreme to us, so we will pick it up a lot easier than someone down the street from us, because chances are they use the same annotations. So it's just that extremity for us where we'll hear something that is a little different, and because it's so different, will really pick it up and be able to identify that, oh, that person has an accent, oh, that person is not from here. The book stated about how someone from a new school comes and you can tell that they're not from there, and that's because it's so different from what's around you. It's really all relative for the most part. Um, my thoughts on the chapter were that it was very, very it was kind of funny because I said the same thing. I have family in Philadelphia and also have family in Cleveland, and I hear the accent from definitely from Philadelphia and even Cleveland. People have a little bit of like a southern kind of accent. It's kind of weird, and when I go there, I will tell them like, "Oh my gosh, you guys have like that New York, that like East Coast accent," and they're like, "What? What are you talking about? No, you sound Southern." I'm like, "Southern? Have you heard someone from Alabama or from Mississippi or something like that?" And they're like, "You sound like them. Like, what do you mean?" And I'm like, "No, I don't have an accent. What are you talking about?" For years, I was like, people from the Midwest, we don't have accents. And then I got to know more people from different places, even in the Midwest. And I can hear the differences from Chicago. I can hear the differences from Cleveland. I can hear the differences from Cincinnati. And I can identify that actually everyone has an accent. Of course, I don't think I have an accent because everyone that's around me sounds like me. Now, when I leave out of Columbus or, even Ohio, it's a really big difference from how we speak and how they speak. So to me, they're the ones with the difference. They're the ones who sound. But in actuality, it's just about where you are. If you're in Mississippi, you've been born and raised in Mississippi, and you have that accent, then of course you're gonna think, I don't have an accent. You're the one with the accent. It's about where you are. So it really just depends. So I think that that was interesting. This chapter as a whole was pretty interesting to me because the idea that, oh no, I'm not the one with the accent. You're the, like, everyone else has it, not me. And you just kind of have to think about where you are. Like, everyone has an accent. You know what I mean? It's just like everyone has an accent depending on who you're talking to as well. If I ask someone in Columbus to have an accent, they're going to tell me no because I sound like them. If I go to Texas or something and ask them, do I have an accent? They may give me a different answer because I don't sound like them. So it's just about what's relative. It all really goes back to what's relative because that's what you're used to. So if you're not used to that, it's gonna stand out a lot more to you. Like I said, the main example that I would have would be like the southern accent. I have cousins from Alabama, and it's funny because they moved from Cleveland. And when they first moved, they would call and they're like, "Oh my gosh, everybody here is so southern and it's just so weird, it's just so different." And then as they stayed down there for years and years and years, I would talk to them and they would sound just like the people in Alabama. And we're like, "You guys have an accent now." And they're like, "No, we don't. What are you talking about? We sound the same." And we're like, "No, no, no. You actually sound just like the people that you were talking about when you first got down there. You have that southern drawl. You have that southern accent now." And they're like, "What?" So we had to record them so that they can hear themselves. And they're like, "Oh my gosh, I have an accent." So it was, to me, it was kind of interesting too for that experience because they had a change in accent from being down there. Now they've been down there, what, 13, 14 years. So now they really have a southern accent and they didn't realize it, but it was an adjustment that they made subconsciously just because they were around people who spoke like that every single day. So now how they said their words started to shift. And as they began to get more and more comfortable with where they were living, they began to adjust their language to where they were. And so now the language that they grew up knowing isn't necessarily the same because they now had a whole new, not language, but they had a whole new dialect that they were around every single day. So I think that was pretty interesting for them to kind of have that switch going on there. So yeah, that was my language myth.